I'm Hamans from ESC, European Sustainability Consulting. This is presentation number 2 on the CEN TC350 standards and informs on the background and development of the European standards of CEN TC350, a suite of standards for assessing the sustainability of construction products and buildings. Who made the standards and what was standardized? There are rules for making European standards. CEN, the European Standardization Organization, provides the platform for organizing the European stakeholder involvement in making European standards. In CEN, the national standardization bodies of all EU countries are represented. The CEN TC350 standards are based on a European mandate M350 given to CEN by DG Enterprise, the Directorate General for Enterprises. Many European countries were, and still are, involved in producing the standards of CEN TC350. The national standardization bodies organize the stakeholder involvement for preparing contributions to the standards content. Customers and users are involved. Competent representatives from consumer organizations, NGOs, industry, inspection and surveillance bodies, science and research, etc. They specify the national contributions and give a national vote in the CEN voting procedures. The national standardization bodies only have the voting right in the CEN Technical Committee. Also for the CEN TC350 standards, they have given their vote to the TC documents. One vote per national standardization body. But behind that vote there is the national position based on the broad range of stakeholders. Without a voting right directly in the European standardization work, the stakeholders also have the possibility to balance and adjust their national input to a common European interest. All aspects of the stakeholders contribute directly to the European content of the documents. Writing the CEN standards, therefore, is both a national and a European contribution. But it always requires the approval by a majority of the national standardization bodies. For the CEN TC350 environmental standards, for instance, with this procedure, out of many possible environmental indicators, a European agreement could be achieved on 22 environmental indicators. One should realize that there are other specific environmental indicators that might be used in specific assessment programs, but not included here in this suite of standards. Either because they were lacking a Europe-wide accepted scientific background, or they could not find support in most of the countries. In this sense, ecotoxicity and land use, for example, are two indicators that could not yet find a European-wide acceptance for being included in this suite of European standards. For instance, on the indicator ecotoxicity, the CEN TC350 stakeholder experts had to conclude that scientists still discuss what methodology is correct and that the procedures within these methodologies are applied differently. Based on this situation, the TC350 stakeholders could not accept the environmental indicator ecotoxicity. As soon as there are more agreement and wide support for one methodology for quantifying ecotoxicity, TC350 will be pleased to include this indicator in the revision of the standards. TC350 also concluded that there is not a robust and accepted methodology in Europe available for quantifying land use. The indicator could not find European support for inclusion in the standard now. What 22 environmental characteristics then could be included in the standards EN 15804 and in EN 15978? The 22 environmental indicators that were approved can be grouped into 4 sections: 7 indicators on direct environmental impacts, 8 environmental indicators on aspects, 3 aspects indicators describing waste, 4 aspects indicators describing resources that leave the process or the object of assessment. In detail, you see here the 7 harmonized environmental impacts, all dealing with emissions and with the use of resources expressed in an environmental impact characteristics. 8 parameters are describing the use of resources. They allow the quantification of aspects on the input of resources like different carriers of energy, primary energy and renewable energy, but also parameters to quantify the use of secondary materials, secondary fuels and the use of fresh water. Then there are 3 aspects describing the waste that is generated, and although the standard does not value the indicators that characterize the environmental performance, the standard allows quantifying 4 environmental aspects that result in a positive contribution to the environment. These are the products or fuels that have reached the end of waste stage and which are substituting resources in other product life cycles, like components for reuse, materials for recycling, materials for energy recovery and exported energy. Together with the use of resources at the input side of a process, this information on the output flow of resources and energy is very useful information for assessing resource efficiency. Quantified performance on these 22 parameters, 22 indicators, is the bottom-up flow of information. It is possible to quantify the environmental performance on each information module for a construction product and service. This information on 22 indicators per module allows using it in the environmental building assessment. More information on the use of information modules you will find in the video modules and scenarios. But there's more than environmental score in sustainability. What else is standardized? Well, in the green column, the group of environmental standards, there are the supporting standards EN 5942 on the business-to-business communication format, and there is the technical report TR 5941 on the use of generic data. And as sustainability is more than just environmental performance, although not finalized at this point in time, there are a number of social aspects that are in the middle of the standardization process. In this second pillar of sustainability, the work on the methodology standard EN 16309 for the assessment of the social performance of buildings is still in progress. The methodology standard has to specify the assessment rules for aspects defined in the framework standard on societal aspects like accessibility of buildings, adaptability of buildings, health and comfort, impact on the neighborhood, maintenance, safety and security. For these 6 aspects, the stakeholders in the standardization process are searching consensus on the necessary indicators that can describe those societal aspects. 2 more aspects, the sourcing of materials and stakeholder involvement, are identified as being difficult to standardize at this point, but we will see. These societal aspects do relate more to the building performance than to the product performance. In the economic performance assessment of sustainability, all under the framework EN 15643 Part 4, there are 2 economic aspects, cost and financial value. You noticed we jumped into the 3rd pillar of sustainability. The methodology standard is in development, and in the year 2014 the working group shall deliver the rules for quantifying the life cycle cost for a building and a suitable and fair set of rules for defining the financial aspects, and all of them shall count on a Europe-wide agreement. This completes the overview of the characteristics defined in the Sustainability Standard. April 2012, all environmental standards are available now. An environmental buildings assessment can be made based on European standardized rules. The standard EN 15804 invites for calculating the environmental product performance. The results are expressed and communicated in an EPD, an environmental product declaration. And the EPD data are made to be used in the building assessment. The standard EN 5978 defines the rules for this building assessment. The two standards EN 15804 for the product assessment at the bottom of the graph and above the standard EN 15978 for the environmental building assessment calculate and quantify the environmental performance per information module. The information modules for the product correspond with the building information modules. If you want to learn more about the standards of CEN TC350, see also the CEN website. More information on working with the standards is available in other YouTube videos in this series, amongst others on the status of the CEN TC350 standardization work, on the modularity and on scenarios, on the confidential life cycle inventory data and EPD environmental product declarations, waste and secondary products, and more. I'm Hamans and welcome your response.